Morning and welcome to America's Web Radio. And this is David's pick. And we've got a special guest on, Chief Warrant Officer 4, Robert Pennington. And we've very fortunate. We had Bob on once before, and he was so good we just had to ask him back. And we did, and he agreed to come back. And Bob, welcome back to America's Web Radio. And as I was mentioning to you, we've changed things around just a little bit. Not much, but a little bit. And we open the show now with our memorial to a close friend, one of my very best friends from college on, and that's J. Roy Ritchie. And he passed away from events caused by Agent Orange. And it was a sad last time, but anyway, we've decided that our brothers and sisters, and we dedicated our homepage has a memorial to J. Roy Ritchie, and if you have someone that you want to list, a veteran, doesn't necessarily have to be a veteran, but if you have someone that is in need of prayer from brothers and sisters across the country, all you have to do is fill out the information, and then on our next show and so forth, we'll mention that person. And we had a new one today, as a matter of fact. He was on yesterday, and was Lieutenant Colonel William Coleman. And I said he was on yesterday. He was on a veteran's story the other day with Pete Mecca, and he's having a battle right now with cancer. So as we go into this moment of silence, let's just think about Lieutenant Colonel Coleman and the others that we have listed, just a number of other folks. And if you have someone, don't hesitate to send their name in, and we'll do just like we're doing right now, and that's listing their names. So we look forward to hearing from you, and we want you to think about Liston Edge. He was a colonel in the Army. Peter Manfrey and Larry Kenyon and Joseph Cronin, besides William Coleman. So we'll be back in just 1 minute. Just take the time to think about our brothers and sisters. Thank you. Robert, how are you doing this morning?
Pretty good, Dave. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, it's a pleasure, and we wanted to continue our conversation. You spent quite a while in the Middle East. You want to just give us a quick rundown on what you were doing in Desert Shield and Desert Storm, and then the follow-up.
Yeah, sure. I've spent almost 5 years in the Middle East altogether, with, of course, actions in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and then on into Afghanistan, and then back to Iraq with about 5 deployments there. So, and then of course we've had training exercises that I was in Uzbekistan a 4-month training exercise there, and then multiple classified missions throughout the Middle East. So, but as far as Desert Storm goes and Desert Shield, I had just finished the Q course, qualification course for Special Forces, and once upon completion, I left and went straight overseas.
Wow.
And and was assigned to one of the teams there, ODA 576, which was out of 3rd Battalion Alpha Company, and we were a mobility team, and we had teamed up with the Saudi 20th Brigade and the 6th Kuwaiti Tank Company, and actually began training with them and advising them before our push into across the border into Kuwait. So quite quite interesting. You you just graduate the course, and then the next thing you know, you're going into combat. So it was.
Let me ask, how old were you when you were doing all this?
I just turned 30.
Wow.
So,
okay, so you were sort of at the top of the list, right? As far as I would assume there were a few younger folks under you.
Oh yeah, easily. But going through the qualification course, there was of course you had several guys that are older than me as well, because you get seasoned guys that go through there. Not until later that we opened it back up to bring in, as we say, people off the streets into the qualification course. They just had to make sure that their scores and their aptitude was pretty high.
Okay, when you're talking, is this strictly for warrant officers? Is that what when you're saying qualification course?
Yeah, the qualification course, it's called the Special Forces Qualification Course.
Okay,
short,
special
we call it
ops.
the Q
Okay,
course.
yeah.
And it is strictly to train Green Berets or wannabe Green Berets. Soldiers coming in and wanting to don the Green Beret and then, of course, be placed on teams throughout
and be like birds, jump out of planes and see if they can
be
fly.
like birds, jump out of the planes. That's right. That's you gotta volunteer to do that too. So we get a lot of guys from the Range Battalion, a lot of guys from the 82nd, the 101st. Very few guys from the regular infantry, but we do get them. And so I came from the regular infantry at the time.
11 Bravo?
I was 11 Charlie. I was a mortar.
A mortar, yeah, okay. Well, I was 11 Bravo.
There you go.
But I had no desire to jump out of a plane.
Yeah. But for me, it helped me because I requested to be a weapons sergeant. And so when I went to weapons training, one of the main weapons of choice that they wanted us to be proficient on was the mortars. Mm-hmm. So I had a leg up on most people in there anyway. So I actually ended up, getting with some of the guys that came in that didn't know too much about mortars, and I would actually give them a few classes myself beyond what the instructors did.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, this is interesting. And this was basically at Benning, or?
No. The Special Forces Qualification course takes place at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, at Camp McCall. And Camp McCall is actually located outside of Fort Bragg, right on the border. And it is, we got it kind of tucked away in an area of land that we can actually, we block it off, and then we're isolated. So it's better for those guys coming out there that they have no distractions. None. There's no TVs. Nothing like that. They come in to learn, and then give their full focus, and then of course, hope to pass and become Green Berets. My class, when I went through, we had when selection took place, which was you got to be selected first to go into the qualification course. We had about 300. I want to say 330 guys that went through, 335, something like that. And 61 actually was assessed and selected at the end.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
then you have 61 guys total out of that group of guys that now has to go through the actual qualification course, which is another 6 to 12 months. And upon that graduation, I think we lost probably another 20, 25 guys. So you figure out of 330, we probably had about 40 guys that made it all the way through.
That's a bit of attrition, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, it really is. I think the attrition numbers, though, now have become better. I worked out at Camp McCall from 2012 to 2014 as the senior warrant officer / command chief warrant out there, and our numbers were better because I think our training was better. It had gotten better over the years. We focused more on trying to get a quality guy through there, and more focus was on training more so than good luck, do the best you can. And so I think the attrition rate from nowadays is of around 50% totally, which is fantastic. So, but we still have to get the troops in from the regular units, and we also got to get them in, of course, from the as we say, the street, which we call them 18 X-rays. And to do that, you still have to have guys volunteer to come in and make the plunge and try to succeed being a Green Beret. So,
and I bet
if you
know
want adventure and you want the tough fight. That's it, man. That's what you got to do.
And I bet there is one song that you all knew very well.
The Ballad of the Green Berets.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Did you all did you all hum that at night as you went to sleep?
What's that?
Did you all hum that at night when you went to sleep in the barracks?
Yeah, I can neither confirm or deny that.
Well, when the history of the Green Berets, when that was in the 60s?
Well, it started in 1952. Of course, we take our lineage from two organizations, from the Black Devils, or the First Special Service Force, and also from the OSS, which later became the CIA. So those two entities, that's where we actually get our lineage from. And so, but we started around 1952, and Colonel Aaron Banks is considered the father of Special Forces because he helped organize and devise this unit, and then made it what it is today. In 1961, that's when we actually the Green Beret itself was given to us in a sense, and that was from President John F. Kennedy. He had come to see some training with General Yarborough, and of course General Yarborough was wearing a Green Beret, which was not at that time. It was, it wasn't a part of the uniform, any part of the uniform. So when he saw it, he liked it, and he said, "Hey, I love this headgear. It's very distinctive. I'm going to bless off on you guys wearing this as your regular headgear. So if you think about it, we're the only unit that the headgear was blessed off by a president of the United States.
That's
to
interesting.
wear.
We're going to let people think about that as we take a quick break, and we'll be back with Chief Warrant Officer for Bob Pennington right after this.
Hi, this is Rocky Blyer, and I hope you'll make plans to join us on January 28th for Warriors for Hope. I'm thrilled to be a part of this virtual fundraiser for St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital and Warriors to Citizen. These organizations do so much to support veterans, first responders, and families who have been touched by pediatric cancer. I'd also like to thank David Moxley and his show, David's Pick, here on America's Web Radio for supporting Warriors for Hope. And I know you'll want to join in and support this event as well on January 28th. So visit warriorsforhope.events. That's warriors and the number 4, hope.events. You can make a gift and reserve your seat for this virtual benefit. Again, that's warriors and the number 4, hope.events. Thanks for your support, and we'll see you at noon on January 28th.
And if you hadn't figured it out already, that's today. So Warriors, the number 4, hope.events. And they've got some absolutely fabulous things they're going to be auctioning off. Lee Greenwood is involved in it. God bless the USA. And Rocky Blyer is, and I got it from Rocky Blyer that it will only be clean jerseys, but there may be a few dirty old socks with holes in them from Rocky. But from Lee Greenwood, you've got guitars and guitars signed by other stars besides Lee. And it'll be a fun thing to do at 12 noon today. And we've been looking forward to this for a couple of weeks and got to know Lee and Rocky, and you couldn't find two nicer guys. And the organizations, I don't know, Bob, if you're familiar with it, but Warriors to Citizens is a transition organization that helps people come back from their deployments if they're having problems like coming back from Iraq or Afghanistan or whatever, and they're having transition problems coming back in as citizens. This has been a needed organization for years, and it's been around now for several years, and they do a fantastic job. And they teamed with St. Jude's Hospital for this fundraiser, and it ought to be classic. So at noon today, go to Warriors, the number 4, hope.events, and join in the fun. And you'll have two great guys there. And Lee Greenwood is singing a new rendition of his God Bless the USA. So with that, Bob, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
and I was going to tell you, David. Yeah, I've heard of the organization, but you're right. I met Lee Greenwood at the Bristol car race back in 2018, and he was phenomenal. He was such a nice guy, great guy. He sang of course, God Bless America, and of course his song, and then we actually did the Pledge of Allegiance. So it was an honor to meet him, meet some of the other guys there. They were fantastic people. It's amazing how much the NASCAR does for the military. They're pretty stand-up people, pretty stand-up group or a group or organization that does well for all of us. So, I salute him as always.
Well, both Lee and Rocky, they not only talk the talk, but they walk the walk, and that's the difference in greatness. And both of them are just honorable gentlemen, and it should be fun today at noon on at the website warriorsforhope.events. and you can bet on guitars, socks that have holes in them, and.
Well, I'd not met Rocky before, but he has he had a great career in football, but
after he was wounded
in
in
Vietnam and got and received some wounds that they thought he would never play again. So
right. He
that guy,
he had damage to the nerves in his right foot from a grenade going off, and
that's correct.
He just said, "I never will stop." And while he was recovering, he got a card in the mail from Rooney, the owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and said, "We're not doing too good this season. We really need you back." And that was his inspiration to some way I'm going to come back, and he did.
Yeah, that's a good motivational card right there.
Yeah, and he after he came back, they won 4 Super Bowl rings. And when we've had him on the air, and love talking to Rocky, he's so funny and just such a good guy. But we'll kid about Terry Bradshaw and what it was like to be in the locker room with him. And like Rocky said, Bradshaw is one that he would walk in the same room with Bradshaw and just start laughing. Bradshaw didn't have to say a thing. He'd just walk in the room and start laughing. And so we're gonna have Rocky on many times in the future, and he's just a super guy, and he'll be there today. He's one of the hosts of Warriors for Hope events today at 12 o'clock. So get on your computer and go to it, and you'll be giving to 2 fantastic organizations. So let's get back to Chief Warrant Officer 4, Bob Pennington, and how we were talking the other day about the military and so forth, and would you say that your career in the military was a learning experience?
Oh yeah, definitely, and like the organization you just spoke of, our big thing is the transition piece from the military back to the civilian world, and to me, it was a little easier, I thought, because I learned so much in the military. It was a foundation that I had built upon as a young man growing up. You learn a lot of things, but you learn more about yourself in the military, in my opinion, especially in special forces, because the teams are so close. You've got a 12-man team, and you become brothers, and because of that, you build experience, you build a strong foundation. The teams, the individuals on the teams, they become planners, organizers. They coordinate many pieces for training or for combat, and so those things apply to the civilian world once you leave it. You just have to focus though, and look at what you want to become, and take those necessary strides to complete the things that will better yourself. I know we got a lot of guys that they transition out and they get in this funk. A lot of them just because it's not necessarily they miss the military, but they miss the guys, that camaraderie sense. And
Mm-hmm.
they kind of lose focus, but you can still reach out. There's those organizations out there that can help you through those, like the one you spoke of, and they can put you on the right track.
And the other service organizations like VFW and American Legion and so forth and so on, where, I've been very, very blessed that gentlemen like you will talk to me, and it's only because of I'm a Vietnam veteran era, and but at least I raise my hand, and a lot of times people coming home, they really don't have anybody that they can talk to about the circumstances that they've gone through and the situations that they've gone through, and so they keep a bottled up bomb ready to explode, and once they're with other people that have done what they've done, walked in their shoes, then they can open up and relieve the pressure in that bottle. And so, speaking of bottles, I believe you have something to do with a few bottles.
Of course, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought it up. And that was a good transition piece for us. And that was to develop and produce whiskey. And we call it Horse Soldier Bourbon. And is probably one of the fastest selling whiskeys out there right now. Hopefully, one day we'll be in all the 50 states, but we're rising up and we're doing pretty well. We're starting to work on a second distillery in the great state of Kentucky, and hopefully, and we'll be on the bourbon trail, of course, and hopefully we can get that moving pretty soon. And then again, reach out to other states. But the bourbon itself is it's fantastic, and I think we're going to work on a couple of more tastes. There's many things that make a good bourbon, and one of them is, of course, the cask, the barrel itself, and putting it in there. And so we're looking at maybe doing a double cask where you put it in one type of barrel like oak, and then you move it into a port barrel or a wine barrel and finish it off, things like that. So those are things that we're looking forward to in the future, just to give us that, that real fine taste.
Okay, so and, I know where the name came, Horse Soldier, but why were you all called Horse Soldiers was it Iraq or?
That was Afghanistan. We were the first team on the ground in Afghanistan, and we linked up with an Afghan militia commander. His name was General Rashid Dostum. And if you watch the movie 12 Strong, there's a good portrayal of him. The guy who plays my character, Michael Shannon, did a phenomenal job. But we were the first guys on the ground, and when we got there, we asked our commander, hey, our General Dostum, hey, what type of transportation means do you have for us? We got to maneuver around the battlefield. He said, well, all I have is horses. Of course, we all looked at each other, and most of us hadn't ridden since we were kids. And we had Mark Nooch, who was the commander. I was the deputy commander at the time. He had excelled in horse riding enough to where he rode in college and in some of the rodeos around the country. So luckily for us, he wasn't a novice, and he was one of the guys who was well trained, so he could pass on some SOPs for us to better ourselves while we were riding.
Now, did you all carry your saber with you, or wear your saber with you?
No, but I did wear my spurs.
Well, I had a little training out in Texas riding, and Texas and New Mexico, and I love riding, particularly as it's cooling down from 100 degrees and the sun's setting and it's dropped down to maybe 80, 75, 80 degrees, and I could stay on the horse forever, I think.
Dave, it's amazing how many muscles you actually use controlling and staying on the horse.
Yeah.
And people don't realize it. And that's when I really blew out my back riding horses, because in Afghanistan, just because of that. It wasn't that I wasn't in shape. I just wasn't used to long hours in the saddle, because we rode for hours on end to get from point A to point B. So it is difficult. It is hard, and if you haven't done it, you had best keep the mileage or the hours down and get used to it.
And
what I'm talking about, don't you?
And the Vaseline handy.
Yeah.
Some things can get chapped rather easily.
Oh yeah.
And that's why cowboys walk funny,
Yeah. And I tell you, the roughest ride actually was uphill wasn't as bad, but coming
downhill?
down the hill, yeah, you had to kind of lean back a little to keep the balance. But as you're leaning back, you're still squeezing using your legs to squeeze the horse to stay on. And I tell you what, that took its toll on everybody, actually.
Let me ask, were you using Western saddles or?
No, we were using the Afghan saddles, and the Afghan saddles, the way they're constructed is they use this. It looked like hickory, and they form this frame like a saddle, and then they tack on wool carpet on these frames, and that's actually their saddle.
Yeah.
They pad it up a little, but in the end, that's tough.
That's where you got it, was in the end.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's right.
How long did you do that?
Well, we hit the ground. We went in October 19th. That was our D-Day, 2001. And the next day we started riding on the 20th with General Dostum. And we sent half the team with him, and the other half, which was commanded by me, we had some drops that were coming in for resupplies, because we couldn't carry all the equipment with us on the CH-47s. It was too heavy trying to get over the mountains. So we stayed back, received a couple of drops, and then we moved forward on horses. And we did stop riding horses until, I want to say, it was 11 November, right around there. So quite a bit. And again, like I said, we were either traveling by foot or we were traveling by horse, and the horse movements could be up to 12 hours in a day. Yeah.
That's a lot of riding. We used to, my uncle had a big ranch out in New Mexico, and I spent many summers there riding, and we'd work the riverbed. We'd leave it with a Dodge Power Wagon and trailer, and we'd trailer our horses out towards the river, and then we'd start riding about 6 or 6:30, and break for lunch about 11:30, and then keep riding until it got dark or close to dark. And
wow.
It was. Yes, there were parts that were extremely sore until you got used to it, and that took a couple of weeks. The horses that we rode, of course we had to get it from someone, so we got them from some of the Afghan riders, and they had to give up their horse so we could maneuver around it, and that way we could advise the other sub-commanders along with General Dostum. But those guys that gave up their horses would take care of the horse for us. They didn't want us to do that, because they were so accustomed to their own horse. They knew what to do. They rub them down, feed them, take care of them, get them ready for the next battle if possible, because we even had cavalry charges where they actually, as we call in close air support, it was like a coordinated attack, and the Afghan cavalry would
charge on completion of the bombings. But even with the bombs in air and coming down, they would still be on a gallop heading towards the enemy. So, they had to really take care of these horses. I was amazed at how well they were trained. They were so in tune with the bombings and the bullets that were going around them that they weren't as spooked as I thought.
Yeah.
Now, they were still wild horses, but like I do, it's you can spook a horse.
Oh, yeah.
And but it takes a lot.
It's off to the rodeo if you get one spooked too.
Yeah, exactly. So it was. I was amazed at how well these horses did during with bullets flying all around their heads.
Did you generally have the same horse every day, or?
No, and that was bad too, and that as well. It's once you get into a horse, you'd like to keep that same horse. You can get accustomed to it, unless it is a bad horse, and there are some wild ones. But you'd like to get a good horse that you're accustomed to and continue to keep that horse. That way, at least, you're more comfortable with it, and you know how to read that horse and what that horse's next movements are going to be.
And vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. But we weren't fortunate enough to have that. Each day was a different horse.
Wow.
So that was kind of troublesome.
So, were the stirrups pretty much like a Western saddle stirrup, or? They
were, as I remember, they were a steel stirrup. The foot placement was a round piece of steel. All the stirrups were very short because the Afghans were very short. So, and a lot of them were broken. So what we did is we would take 550 cord, which is used on parachutes, and as we would get these drops that would come in, and we would take the parachutes and cut them up and cut up the some of the lashing and some of the 550 cord, and we would use that to extend the stirrups. Wow. So it would accommodate a guy like me who's 6'2", weighs, with all my gear, I was probably about 280. That's without the rucksack. Wow. So we did a lot of repairing. You learn a lot of stuff on the fly about doing that too, and what works and what doesn't work. How you tie down your radio, where you put your weapon, where do you put your little salt bag, and how you position it on the horse, where the horse is actually comfortable as well. So we learned a lot on the fly, but it did pay off in the end. Just once someone would learn something and say, "Hey, this is working pretty good," the others would go, "Okay, let me do that as well." And so it's kind of like building SOPs, from combat experience, but still on the go.
Bob, and I've mentioned this many times. Seldom do I have someone like yourself on that I don't learn something that I'd never heard of or didn't know at all. And this is something, and I'm going to preach to you and preach to everybody else that's listening for a second. You now have the responsibility of being our history books, because what's coming out as a history book in our school systems is a joke. And I don't know anything about you personally, but whether it's your kids or your grandkids or whatever the circumstance is, put them up on your lap and tell them about this. Tell them about the horse soldiers of the 2020s or whenever it was, or 2018 or 2016, whatever. But you are our history books today, and it won't be written up for tomorrow, and nobody will ever know about it unless you do that. And not only will you entertain those young kids, but they will remember it forever and pass it on to their kids. That
Well, I hope some of these, and I appreciate that, Dave. Thanks a lot. I hope some of these, these young people that are listening to the radio right now, listening to us, and they look at this as an adventure, and maybe it spurs them to take their own adventure, to join up and do something that that will last a lifetime. Something they'll feel proud to talk about. Serving in the military, and maybe they'll do better things than I did, or and they're going to meet new people, build a family inside the military as beyond their own family. And for me, like I said, it was fantastic. We just we're still working on our book, Mark and I, and we're done now. It's completed. It's with the author, who is Jim DeFelice, who wrote American Sniper, and he's cleaning it up now and getting ready to send it off to DOD so they can have their final look and make sure that our book is in good shape.
Oh,
but it
that's great.
covers the entire campaign of Afghanistan on those early days after the
Wow.
9/11 attacks.
Wow. Oh, I'm looking forward to that. And
Yes, sir.
the one thing that you have in common with the DOD and many of the folks in D.C. is, I'm sure with those horses, you learned how to shovel it.
Come on, Dave. Say it isn't so now. Come on.
Okay, what we're going to do right now is take one more little break and remind everybody that today is the day, Warriors, the number 4, hope.events. And you've got Lee Greenwood, Rocky Blyer, and some other folks that are going to do one heck of a job at noon. So be sure and tune in, and we're going to hear from Lee Greenwood right now.
Hi, I'm Lee Greenwood, and I am so proud that the Warriors for Hope group has asked me.
Bob, what do you think? We doing okay?
I think we're doing great. It's fun. I don't mind kind of popping off track a little with this type of conversation, because it kind of focuses on both of us, as riding horses and things like that. And my question to you was, when did you start riding? And then, do you still ride now?
Oh, no, I wish I did, or wish I could.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, I don't ride, and I started when I was 2 because my uncle had a ranch, and he threw me up on a horse, and that was the start of it. But let's come back. You're listening to America's Web Radio, and we've got Roy Rogers. No, I'm sorry, Bob Pennington on. I got all confused. Yeah, I pulled a Biden and called you Roy Rogers. But being a horse soldier, I guess that would be in common. And you know what I think is so neat. And you said something a minute ago that sort of rang the bell. But our military is the most incredible organization in the world, and we have, without question, we have some of the best people ever in our military. And, to adapt to a situation, had you ever ridden before or done much riding?
Well, like I said, as a kid, I rode here and there. I always throw out the joke about the, when I'm in in an auditorium and I'm talking to 400 or 500 people, I tell them I had quarter horse training, and they kind of just look at me, and I say it in a serious tone, and then I come back with where you throw a quarter down in the horse in front of Walmart, and you ride that little guy, and then of course I get laughs for at least 5 minutes. So, and then people come up to me later on and, they ask me about that. It's, was that really the only, only the only horse training you ever got? And I said, well, I did that. And of course I rode a horse here and there. I said, but it doesn't matter when you're a kid and you ride a horse and then you don't do it for a while. It is, it's pretty hard on the body, especially as you get older.
Yeah.
I said it wasn't too comfortable at the time. I said because I actually during that combat time I was 41. So
Wow. Okay.
I was pretty seasoned, and about that time, your body starts to feel the effects of getting bounced around a little.
Absolutely. But, and my point being is that you all adapted. In the military, I've told this story many times, and you may have a story like it. When I was going through basic and AIT and was a college graduate and going through, and you'd say, why in the world are we doing something like this? This is about as stupid as you can get. And I'll have flashbacks now that I realize there was a reason for it. And when I say flashbacks, I just thinking about, when I was going through training and stuff and say, now I understand why we did that. And the military is so adaptable and so trained, it may look like horrendous repetition on one side, but those guys that are doing it, they've had lots of experience and 200 and some odd years of forming the best military in the world. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And like I said, it was it's helped me through my lifetime. And I'm very appreciative of my time in the service. I think you hit it earlier, though, when you said, the transition piece. That's something that I believe the military needs to work on a little more. And that is, take care of these guys once they, don't just cut them loose. They have some programs in place, but it's almost like we need to follow a soldier once he gets out. Not just, you know what I'm saying? Not just cut him off. But,
they know what to do with you when you walk in. They just don't know what to do with you when you walk out.
That's right. So there needs to be, I think, a better transitional piece that stays with you and can advise and help you throughout your time. Sure, there's a time when you're just going to say, I'm good now. But even that, when something that you can reach back to and say, hey, this is where I'm at now with my business. I'm doing pretty well. You got any suggestions? Do you have any help? And have those experts out there that can not hold our hands, but help lead us through problem areas and guide us through that. And so, because it is a rough transition from the military to the civilian, especially if you've taken a lot of time and gone through multiple combat experiences and difficult training. So those things, they stay focused in our heads. They're very vivid. And so you need something that will help you, guide you through that process of transitioning through and then into the business world so you could be successful. Those are the things I think we need to continue to focus on. So I'm assuming those guys at that
warriors to citizens.
Yeah.
And they
that
do.
Organization you just talked about, they do that. They will help and assist those guys for years to come out of the military once they get out.
And one of the important things is to make sure they get a bottle of horse soldier, right? Is that?
Yes, horse soldier. Yeah, of course they need it. I shouldn't say that.
That'll help in the transition every time. But
it helps me.
I'm going to have to find
Moderation, David.
Moderation, absolutely. And I'm going to have to, hopefully, one of the liquor stores down here in Georgia has your all's product. And,
Well, it does. We don't have it in Georgia yet, but I got some news at the end of last year, the late December timeframe, that we are looking at opening, pushing our brand, our Horse Soldier brand, throughout Georgia. So hopefully that happens this year.
well, I know where you could advertise.
Yeah,
You know.
absolutely. I appreciate that too.
But anyway, back to soldiering, and that's another question I got to ask. Now, Western, and that's all I ever rode was Western. So, and you're talking about a round stirrup, sort of. So, would you wear combat boots and using the round stirrup, or did?
Yeah. Well, that's all we had. It was our combat boots. And the thing about those combat boots is they're really kind of slick on the bottom, the desert boots. So you really got to hold your legs in there or your feet in those stirrups. They would slide out. I wish there was times, where we had better boots for that, or even we tried to get saddles brought in on us, and evidently that was a difficult task because they never showed up. And when they did show up, we were already done with combat operations. So,
well, why does that figure?
What's that?
Why does that figure?
Yeah, I tell you what, that was just because of those saddles themselves. We needed something more comfortable, something more usable, and again It was funny though, because we had and this always happens anyways through logistics. You say, well, I need saddles, and the question comes back, why? Well, I'm riding horses. Well, why are you doing that? I'm like, look, just send me saddles. I just want saddles.
I've been sitting here just thinking about riding a horse on a wool blanket, on a wool piece of carpet.
Oh my God.
Oh
Yeah.
Why didn't you just give up the give up their saddle and just put sandpaper on it?
It would probably be the same. You're right. I mentioned that once. I said, would it be easier riding bareback? And of course, Mark goes, well, no, we need something, and here's why we need the saddles. I said, okay, I got it. It makes sense. So it's actually not only is the saddle good. It's supposed to be good for us. It's good for the horse as well. So, but yeah, that was an experience. But again, like you said, we adapted, we overcame, we succeeded, and the army taught us, to do those things. And again, it's helped me through my life the same way. Always adapt, overcome, succeed.
Those horses had to be very well trained to put up with the shelling and the rifle fire and all this. Did they ever? I've had a horse spook with a truck. Did they ever spook with any of the heavy equipment or anything?
That's a good question. I don't remember that. I do remember my horse got spooked a couple of times going down the ridge, which was 3,000 or 4,000 feet high, and coming down. That seemed to bother him. I think it's because, again, riding a horse downhill, you're actually you're leaning back, like I stated earlier. So that because I was so heavy, that may have really affected that horse, and he tried to buck me a couple of times on that ridge, and which was pretty dangerous. That was a long drop.
And you didn't have your chute on, huh?
No chutes at that time. So, and no reserve either. So, I was on my own
Ugh, that I can just sort of see that in my mind's eye, and that would not be where I'd want to be. But I think this has been a great show because there are just so many people, and myself included. I've learned a lot today on that we had horse soldiers in Afghanistan. That's fantastic. And
well, I appreciate it, Dave. Yeah, it was a good conversation. I enjoyed it myself. You and I talked at the break, and you said you had started early, but riding horses, but you don't do it. You don't do it anymore. But I tell you what, it's like I said, as you get older, it's harder when you're older.
Oh yeah,
and,
there are a lot of things that are, except for a few.
Yeah, and I've had opportunities where people would come up and say, "Hey, can you come to my ranch? We're going to ride horses like all day." And I'll come to your ranch maybe brush some of the horses, but my 12 hours of riding, well, that's done.
I would, I'd probably be in a million pieces if I rode 12 hours by the time I got off, But no, it's for folks, a lot of folks haven't experienced a lot of things. Everybody should experience being in the military, in my opinion. And the other thing is riding. If they've never ridden, and not just this thing of going to where they lead the horse around a trail and the horse knows the trail better than. But it's I was very blessed, and my uncle owned a super big ranch in New Mexico, and I'd go over there and experience what he experienced. That's all he ever wanted to do, was be a rancher. And he was fortunate enough to buy, and you can look it up on the web, as a matter of fact, the Bell Ranch in near Tucumcari, New Mexico. And he had a bunch of land, but part of his land, I don't know about you, but I love Westerns. I watch Western repeats every single day. And every now and then the troops are coming from Fort Bascom. Okay, he owned Fort Bascom, and that was a fort in New Mexico back at the turn of the century.
Wow. Yeah, David, talking about that, I went to Texas last year, early December, and of course we were talking about our whiskey there, the Horse Soldier bourbon whiskey, and I saw the John Wayne Museum there. Well, it was just put in place, and I went in there and met John Wayne's granddaughter, and we spoke for a long time. She, of course, her dad loved the Green Berets because he made the movie The Green Berets.
Sure.
And so she actually walked us around the museum and showed us many of the artifacts that they have that relate back to John Wayne, and it's amazing how many Westerns he did.
Bob, I'm going to have to cut it off. We've run out of time, but give me a call right back, would you? I'll tell you some stories about John Wayne.
Okay.
We'll be back with more other shows after this.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.